Hey everyone, welcome back. My name's dustinkreis, and today we're going to do a game discussion about the DLC for Bioshock Infinite. We're going to talk about Burial at Sea, Episode 2, and I just finished this yesterday, and it was a very, very, very bittersweet thing, because on the one hand, I was so excited to play another game in the Bioshock universe, another story set in Rapture in Colombia, and to see these characters again and to do all this. But, kind of tempered with that was the knowledge that Irrational Games was no longer around, and they would no longer be doing the Bioshock games. I believe 2K still has the rights to the series, but Ken Levine and all the guys at Irrational, it's done. It's over. There's going to be no more of their involvement with the series. So it'll be interesting to see where this series goes from here, but for right now, I'm just kind of, I don't know, I'm sad to see it go, because I think, as a few more years into this new generation goes on, I'm going to look back on the Wii 360 and PS3 era, and when I figure, what was my favorite series from that time, it's probably going to be Bioshock. And that's crazy, because I am an RPG guy. I love JRPGs, and for a first-person shooter to just come out of left field and probably be my favorite series of that particular generation, that says a lot about the craftsmanship and the quality that went into this series. We could sit and debate the merits of Bioshock 2 all you guys want, but when you look at Bioshock 1 and Bioshock Infinite, for me anyway, they are pretty perfect. I would say Bioshock 1 is perfection, and I would say Infinite is just a little bit below that, but it's still really close. I honestly, I don't know how to really do this game discussion. To make this really short, if you loved Bioshock and you loved Infinite, this is a no-brainer. It wraps up the story. It ties everything together. There's still some loose ends left open for your brain to sort of ponder, and that's the great thing. That's what you want in a concluding piece of the puzzle. You want the big questions, the big through moments to be connected and filled in, and then you want the little bristly edges to still be there to tickle your imagination. And there's still things, after it's all said and done, there's still things about Bioshock that, what was the true nature of Songbird? What actually was Songbird? There are all these things that still tickle the imagination and kind of the what ifs. And Steven and I were kind of talking the other night on Facebook about it, and there's still room, in this series for debate and different opinions on it, and that you cannot overstate how important that is. A lot of stories try too hard to wrap everything up with a nice bow, and I personally like a little ambiguity in my storylines. I like there to be something to keep you thinking, and Burial at Sea definitely did that. So, I might talk a little bit about the storyline going forward. So, I'm just going to say this to you guys now. If any part of the Bioshock universe interested you, Burial at Sea is worth your time. Definitely play them in order. Play Bioshock. Play Bioshock Infinite. You can play 2 if you want to. 2 is kind of a weird thing. It's kind of like Silent Hill 2 in a way, whereas Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill 3 kind of formed a narrative together, and 2 is kind of its own little story. Bioshock 2 is kind of its own little story. It fits into the greater mythos of the Bioshock universe, but it doesn't really have a big through effect on what Bioshock and Bioshock Infinite storylines are. But I would definitely recommend playing it, because it is a fun time. And you get to go to Rapture again. Why wouldn't you want to go to Rapture again? But yeah, if you're a fan of any part of the series, Burial at Sea is worth the price of admission. Buy the season pass, get episodes 1 and 2, Play them back to back. You're going to enjoy it. So, if you don't want to hear any potential spoilers, because I'm probably going to have to talk about some things. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say it now. I will be talking about some things. You might want to go ahead and stop watching. We'll just dodge that bullet right now. But anyway, the storyline picks up right after episode 1 left off with Elizabeth in the clutches of Atlas. And where it goes from there, it starts off in this it brought a huge smile to my face to see Elizabeth walking around the streets of Paris. But even then, that smile was tempered with the fact that this isn't right. This isn't where she should be. And sure enough, things get way darker from there. And she's out to try to find Sally, this little girl, this little orphan. I can't remember the exact reason why she's looking for her, though. I remember why Booker wants to find her, because Booker's very attached to her due to the closing of the orphanages. But I can't remember. That's going to nag me right now. Like, it just slipped my mind why Elizabeth is looking for her so hard. But yeah, she's out to find this little sister, Sally. And of course, Atlas has her and uses her as a bargaining chip, and he wants his ace in the hole. And if you've played the games, you know what that ace in the hole is. So it's up to you, Elizabeth, to kind of make your way through Rapture and try to find this ace in the hole for Atlas. And just from a gameplay standpoint, I'm going to kind of jump around a bit because it's so hard to talk about this without just wanting to just vomit at the screen. From a gameplay standpoint, things change up a little bit. It's more of a stealth-based game, which works extremely well. I was kind of off-put by it the first couple seconds that I was like, oh, we're going to do this. And it's like, oh, because we're Elizabeth, she can't deal damage out, so we have to be stealthy. But as the game moves on, it really feels like this stealth part should be an integral part of the gameplay of Bioshock. It just should. It just felt so natural to do that. So you're stealthily moving around it's not even really pre-destruction Rapture anymore, because we were in Fontaine's department store, which is, of course, if you know the story of Bioshock and you've read Bioshock Rapture, the book, all about Fontaine's store getting sunk below, 40 fathoms below Rapture. And so you're down there and everything's kind of decrepit and destroyed, and you're trying to figure out how to find what Atlas is looking for. And the storyline takes a lot of crazy twists and turns. It completely changes the Daisy Fitzroy story. It's just a brief little bit, but if you remember back to events that happen in Infinite, it completely changes her storyline. There is I guess it's a very controversial scene. When I was playing the game, it didn't make me feel at all uncomfortable and out of place, because if you remember anything at all about all this shit that happened in the first Bioshock, just because it didn't happen to your character, doesn't make it any less damaging. But the lobotomy scene in the game, a lot of people are having a hard time with that, and for me, it just felt like part of that universe. The people of Rapture went batshit insane, and to think things like that didn't happen, or worse things than that happened down there, that's kind of naive, especially if you've read Bioshock Rapture, the book, and you really pay attention to the universe. And so I don't know why people are having such a hard time with that. Maybe it's because it happens to Elizabeth, I guess. But it felt like part of that world. All the little interconnective bits, like when you start jumping between Rapture and Columbia, and you see how interwoven those two different worlds are. Basically, both sides are stealing from the other. The Rapture people get the idea of the Big Daddies from the Handymen in Columbia, and Columbia gets the idea of the Vigors from the Plasmids. You know, it's just this crazy, like, they're just constantly thieving from each other. And when you play the games, especially when you play Bioshock, you don't realize how interconnected the worlds are. And I don't think that Ken Levine planned this from the beginning. I think, you know, he had the idea for Bioshock, and then he had the idea for Infinite with little, you know, kind of Easter eggs to get you back to the first game. And then when he was creating Burial at Sea, he figured out how to tie it all together. And that's more impressive to me. Like, if he had it all planned out from the beginning, that's great, you know. But the fact is, you take a standalone story and then you actually make a much larger story out of it, and you make it work. Because there's been so many movie trilogies that have started off as a standalone movie, and the only one that I can think of that really works as a trilogy is like Back to the Future, because it ties back in. You know, like The Matrix was a great movie, but then Matrix 2 and 3 were kind of subpar in a lot of ways. So there's all these sort of makeshift trilogies. Pirates of the Caribbean is another one. The first movie was pretty good. The second and third movie were pretty bad. To make it all work like they did with Bioshock, Bioshock Infinite, and Burial at Sea is a real testament to story writing, and I really, really love that. Oh my god, it's so hard to say goodbye to this universe. I mean, there's going to be another Bioshock game, and I'm going to go out and buy it, but it's just not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same, because I really wanted to see where Irrational took this next, because they almost literally created a Mobius strip with Burial at Sea. Like, it's a real chicken or the egg type of thing, where there's no beginning and there's no end. It's all just one big loop that happens over and over again. And that kind of brings the whole thing together, you know, with the big line in Bioshock Infinite is, will the circle be unbroken? And eventually the circle does kind of get broken. You know, this whole event's happening over and over again, and then enter Jack, and then all of a sudden, you know, Rapture and Columbia, it's all kind of wrapped up. Of course, there's Bioshock 2 that takes place 10 years after Bioshock 1, but that's sort of just, again, just sort of a remnant story of a story of what's left, you know. Bioshock and Bioshock Infinite are the main storylines, and then, you know, Bioshock 2 is kind of this weird little epilogue type thing to say, hey, you know, the people are still down there. But yeah, gosh, I don't know. I don't know where to go with this. The graphics are just as good as Bioshock Infinite. I didn't notice any real graphical hiccups. Every now and then the gameplay would stutter just a little bit, but that might have just been my Xbox 360. I really couldn't say if it was the game. The music and the ambience of the game, the audio is pitch perfect, and the stealth gameplay, I should talk a little bit more about the stealth gameplay. I really want this to be in future. If 2K makes future Bioshocks, the stealth gameplay should have always been there. It's so friggin' good. It really makes you explore the levels more, because sometimes it's easy to play Bioshock as a little bit of a run and gun. And this changes things, because you have to, like, use alternate routes, whether it be through a vent, like a little sister climbs into the vents, or just around the environment itself to get away from, like, broken glass and things like that to alert enemies. I just really, really enjoyed almost the negation of the combat, and that's a weird thing to say about Bioshock, but maybe it was just such a breath of fresh air after 3 Bioshock games of doing the usual plasmid gun combos, you know, to really just use the, you know, like, really the only plasmid I used was Peeping Tom to see where everybody was at. And then I was either sneak attack meleeing characters, or I was using my sleeping darts to make them fall asleep. And that's a great weapon. The crossbow is a great addition to this game. You have 3 different arrows for it. One is an alarm, so you shoot an arrow and it, like, sets off this alarm that draws all the enemies to that alarm within a certain area. and then you have another one that's a gas dart that you can fire really quickly after using the noisemaker to release this cloud of gas that will then knock all those enemies out. It's a really nice 1-2 punch, and I used it very effectively in several situations. And then, of course, you have the normal tranquilizer darts that will put enemies to sleep. It's really a great addition, and you know, I got over that hump of feeling like, oh God, you know, it's Elizabeth, she's a woman, she can't, you know, obviously she can't do anything, you know, we have to make her weak and stealthy. But it's crazy by the end of the DLC how much I really enjoyed that aspect of the combat. I did miss some video logs, so there is going to be some replay value with this for me. I probably will go back and play episodes 1 and 2 again sometime later in the year. I don't want to do it right now, but sometime later in the year, go back and play them and try to get all the audio logs so I can get the complete story, because that's what the achievement for getting all the audio logs in episode 2 is called. Was it the complete story or the whole story or something like that? So I really think that those missing audio logs, and I only missed like 5 to 7 or something like that, I really think those will put a lot of the pieces of the puzzle together for me. I really just need to sit down with episodes 1 and 2 and just thoroughly explore every inch of Rapture, because let's face it, it's never going to be the same again. We're never going to go back to Rapture. We're never going to go back to Columbia and have it feel as good as it did. You know, how far away is Bioshock 1? I'll go ahead and pull it out too. Come here, you. It's never going to feel as good as it did with these two games. I was really hoping that this would go into the next generation and I could play, you know, another Bioshock on my PS4. And I probably will, but it's just not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe certain series that have that level of quality should stay with a certain generation. You know, we've had a lot of series like Final Fantasy that's just jumped generation after generation after generation. And you see the quality kind of dip. And, you know, there is something to be said for knowing when to walk away. There's several examples I can pull of this, like any of Ricky Gervais's shows. They only stay around for about 2 seasons, and then they're done, so they don't wear out their welcome. LCD Sound System, one of my favorite bands, made 3 awesome albums, and then decided to call it quits. You know what I mean? It's like, is it better to just know when to quit? And maybe that's why Ken Levine ended Irrational Studios, because Bioshock Infinite was just received so well that it's like, you know, why do something that doesn't live up to what we've already done? You know what I mean? Why not go out and try to do something new? And it sucks that the people at Irrational lost those people at Irrational that did lose their jobs and he didn't take with them. It sucks that they did lose their jobs, but I have no doubt that people like that are going to find jobs in this industry. That people want those people. But yeah, you know, maybe it's a good thing that Bioshock only lasted 3 games. And then, you know, I guess we'll see what 2K does with it. But if it's only 3 games, I guess I am happy with that, because I literally had one of my top gaming experiences ever with this series, and that's nothing to stick your nose up at, and it's nothing to get, you know, bitchy and angry about. We had 3 great, well, 4 if you count Burial at Sea as its own separate thing, but we had 3 great experiences with this franchise, and that's more than most franchises get. So usually it's like 1 great game and then the rest just kind of suck. But anyway, that's my thoughts on Bioshock Infinite, Burial at Sea. It's so worth your time. It completes the story in a way that I was skeptical, even after episode 1. As much as I enjoyed episode 1, I was skeptical that episode 2 would really complete the story as well as it did, and I was pleasantly surprised. And what a way to go out. I mean, It's not the big huge ending that you get with Bioshock Infinite and that sort of explosion, but it does sort of redeem a lot of things that the series needed to redeem before it ended. So I guess that's my thoughts on that. I don't really know what else to say because I'm kind of just talking myself into a corner now because I don't know. It's one of those things that you really need to have a back and forth conversation about to really remember all the details. But Bioshock, I'm not going to forget this series anytime soon. I'm going to tell you that much for sure. Even if 2K just milks the hell out of it and ruins it, Bioshock 1, Bioshock 2, and Bioshock Infinite will always have a special place in my gaming heart. So, anyway guys, that's it for this video. I want to thank you so much for watching. Take care. I'll see you next time.